Hello there. We're getting accustomed to short games from Moscow, and today's game was no exception. Hello, this is Daniel King reporting on Game 8 of the Anand Gelfand World Championship match. Today, Anand had the white pieces, and he's one game down, 5 to go, so he really had to go for it today. And he opened with 1 d4, so he switched back to d4. It's clear that e4 in the last game, his last with the white pieces, he was, well, just waiting until his analysts could find a good answer to the Grunfeld, and it looks like Boris Gelfand was going to play the Grunfeld again. Anand happy to repeat the line that he played in an earlier game. This time Gelfand did not play d5 as we saw earlier. He got the first surprise in c5, and this transposes to Benoni type positions. You can also get this from Samish King's Indian positions, and here knight c3 would be a straight transposition into those kind of, well, Samish or Benoni structures. And here, I mean, these are playable positions for both sides, but the problem often white has is that it takes time to redeploy this knight on e2. Often it goes to g3, but this can be attacked by the h-pawn, and black gains time for his kingside attack. Or the knight goes back to c1, but that's not a particularly good square for the knight. Therefore, Anand tried to exploit the fact that he hadn't played knight c3 yet, and played knight e2. So these are already rather unusual positions, actually. And now the knight came to c3. And although, okay, you could say the knight on b1 isn't brilliant, but often it can come to a3 to cover b5. That's an important square if black is going to try to play b5 himself. Or sometimes it just comes to d2. But anyway, this is already a slightly unusual position. And now here the normal move would be e6, and, well, it's just a full-blooded fight. Bishop e3 might be possible. I rather like bishop g5, actually, to sort of tempt this pawn forward, and then maybe you can gain time against that pawn with the queen. But anyway, Gelfand played, well, a slightly unusual move, knight h5. We're already in the realms of pretty unknown territory as far as theory goes. Now, knight h5 is, of course, well motivated. You want to sometimes attack with your f-pawn, breaking down white structure. Sometimes you simply want to play e6 and possibly later on f5, but maybe you're making way for the queen as well. So knight h5 is, although in this particular position hasn't been seen before, it's pretty well motivated. But Anand sought to exploit the fact that black hasn't played e6 yet, and played bishop g5 straight away. I think this is a good move. And now Gelfand already started looking a little bit uncomfortable. He came up with a slightly strange concept. Played bishop f6, and I think Anand would have been pretty delighted to see that move, because without this bishop, black's position lacks some dynamism. You know, you don't get this bishop raking across the board. Anand took on f6, and Gelfand took with the e-pawn, so he's going to use the pawn to attack white's centre. And now white has to play quite aggressively. You know, what he would like to do is play g4 to beat this knight back and keep this big space advantage, this nice structure. So both players have to really go for it here. f5, and afterwards Anand said that he'd seen a trick coming when Gelfand played f5. It turns out this may well be a mistake, but okay, it's already difficult. Anand took. It's already a very sharp position. Now it's very important that white plays aggressively here. This doesn't win a piece because, excuse me, black checks. Now if the king comes up here, then this is already well, critical, you could say, from white's point of view. So Anand played, and likewise with bishop e2, then queen h4 check. But Anand had seen this coming and played king d1. And okay, but as I said, black is not losing a piece because he exchanges off the bishop for knight, and the king is not so badly placed on d1. In fact, it's going to come to c2, and after that the rooks will connect, and it's actually reasonably safe on c2. And now probably black should play knight f6 here, and we have a sharp position, but this is the kind of thing that white is aiming for, because he's controlled the king side and he's ready to expand on the king side. So let's say knight a6, okay, we stop the check, and now, well, there are various ways to play it for white, but let's say h4, you can go for it on the king side, you know, h5 threatened, and you just have this huge space advantage. And this, you can see that black's knights lack squares, and this is a very, it's a sharp position still, but I think white has the better chances here. This is the kind of thing that white has to go for. But it's a very sharp position, and Gelfand calculated queen f6, and it turns out this is a blunder, and Anand had seen this coming quite a few moves back. Gelfand thought that they might get a position like king c2 and then some kind of exchange sacrifice. After knight e4, probably black has to play this, and well, this is rather an attractive position for black to play, where you get these beautiful knights. I mean, even this isn't so clear. Maybe you play h4, but okay, with the securing e5 should be pretty playable for black. But no, Anand had seen something else. After queen f6, black is losing. He took the knight. Gelfand assumed he could get away with taking this rook. He'd looked at moves like queen f4, but Anand coolly played queen f2, after which Gelfand resigned. I think that's the shortest game I've ever seen in a World Championship, a shortest decisive game. I can't think in modern times there has ever been a loss that quick. I mean, this is extraordinary. The point is that black's queen is trapped. White threatens to play bishop h3 or bishop d3, and the queen has gone. An extraordinary piece of miscalculation. As Gelfand said afterwards, there were so many variations. It was all incredibly complicated, and unfortunately for him, he said, well, I just overlooked this very simple move. He'd been looking at moves like queen f4, after which there's still a chance, but overlooked the very simple queen f2. Let's just have a look at a couple of variations. Knight a6, where you can even simply play a3, and on the next turn move the bishop to win the queen. But you could also play bishop d3 after the check, and the queen is trapped, has to give itself up for the rook, and then queen and knight against two rooks should be an easy win. So Gelfand resigned. Scores level with 4 games left. But it's curious, Anand didn't win this game, Gelfand lost it. So I don't know, it must be a very strange feeling for Anand that, you know, he didn't have to work very hard for this win today. Maybe that he just doesn't care about that. But yeah, I don't know, it must be a very strange feeling for both players actually. Anyway, all to play for, 4 games left. It's all kicking off in Moscow.